Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City, longtime Press of AC Eagles beat writer. Our midweek look at the Birds brought to you by Wind Supply, Absecon, Contractors and Builders. Wind Supply wants your attention, your business. Wind Supply and Absecon, a better source for all your plumbing and heating supplies. Online at windsupplyabsecon.com. Dave, a percentage of teams that are 3-1 that make the playoffs, 64%, much better than the 2-2s. It seemed that this week Doug Peterson really stressed not having a letdown after the wild win they had on Sunday. Was that kind of the message today at the NovaCare Complex?
Yeah. Doug sent that message to the players, and the players all spent a lot of time talking about the need to not let that emotional victory, get to them. It's time to just, put that behind them, refocus, and try and get this win out in L.A. Of course, that's really easier said than done. I mean, we'll like it or not, certain games carry more emotional weight than others, and it's going to be tough for them, I think, to bounce back after that. Such an exciting way to beat the Giants last Sunday.
Now, does that kind of tell us a lot about what this team is, if, in fact, they do bounce back off the emotional, go across the country, and come out and play a good football game? Should that give us a better indication of who this team really is?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it'll show they're a more mature football team, more of an even-keeled football team, that despite the youth on the team, there's a lot of young players here, but if they can somehow regroup and refocus and, beat a Chargers team that, quite frankly, should probably be 2-1 instead of 0-3. But, if they can beat them, then that says a lot about them. It does.
The fact that they're playing an 0-3 team here, that obviously stands out because they're going to be a team that's playing, obviously, like their season is on the line, which it pretty much is, especially in the division that they play in here. But the Eagles obviously are in the thick of this NFC East race. But right now, after 3 games, how would you kind of identify with this team? Because they ran the ball 39 times for 193 last week, Dave, after throwing the ball 75% of the time. What is the identity of Philadelphia through 3?
I don't think they have one to be honest with you. Like you said, they've been throwing the ball 60 times one game, running the ball 40 times another game. I think it's going to take a few more weeks before they really establish their identity and you get a better sense of exactly what kind of offense they are, whether they're going to be this more balanced attack or whether they're going to, throw the ball more often than not. It probably depends on the game and the situation too. Like if you have a comfortable lead, maybe you run the ball a little bit more than usual. Although, the Giants game was back and forth, so they kind of stuck with it. So, it's still, I think it's too early to tell, exactly what the identity of the team is yet.
How big, in your opinion, is the loss of Sproles?
Huge. Not just on the field, but in the locker room too. He was universally respected and admired as a leader. Not the most talkative guy, but when he did say something, everybody paid attention. He did a very good job of taking the younger running backs under his wing, showing them the ropes, showing how to do things both on and off the field. And on the field, there's nobody that can replace him as a punt returner. He might be the best that ever was. And he was also one of their most valuable running backs. You could argue that he was probably their most valuable player last year and maybe even the year before. So, to lose a player like that, it's not going to be easy to go on without him.
So what do they do? What's the message now in terms of from the coaching staff? Who do they pinpoint to kind of take over for Sproles?
Well, on the field, Kenyon Barner is going to be the punt returner. He got to town today and was fielding most of the punts. And on the field, I guess they're just going to go with the same running back by committee that they were. I think Wendell Small will have a bigger role. Rookie Corey Clement will have a bigger role along with Garrett Blunt. So I think they'll just go with a 3-headed monster. Maybe mix Barner here and there, since he did play for the team the last 2 years, so he kind of knows the offense. He knows what he's doing. He's a pretty good receiver out of the backfield, so that might help him. But like I was on the locker room, I don't know what they're going to do. To be honest with you, they're just going to rely on some of those other veteran leaders to step up and maybe even take on a bigger role than they have been.
Dave, how important is it to get this win this week, especially how last season they started out 3-0 and then had that epic collapse? This season they have a lot of tough road games later in the schedule. How is it important to beat these teams that are struggling earlier on in the season?
Oh, it's very important. I would argue though maybe it's not a backbreaker if they lose this, since it's a non-conference game and a non-division game. But yeah, these are one of the games that you point out the season and you think maybe you should find a way to pull out. There's going to be games where you might lose that you're expecting to win. This is one that if you can get that in the bank, that puts you one step further, one step closer to where you need to be. So yeah, it'll be a big boost of further confidence and just for some momentum to knock off the Chargers.
How concerned are you that Torrey Smith still hasn't made that big play downfield? Is that more on Torrey not running the right route or not just getting the opportunity, or Carson's accuracy?
A little bit of both, but I would probably put more of the blame on Carson. It seems like there's been times where Torrey's had to step on the defender and it's been open, and for whatever reason, Carson hasn't been able to hit him. Same thing with Alshon Jeffrey, too, to a lesser extent. But the fact that they're even willing to take those shots down the field, that says a lot. I mean, you don't necessarily have to connect on all of them, but yeah, the fact that you can prove that you can throw the ball deep and maybe make a play every once in a while, that has to keep the defenses honest, keeps you from putting 5, 6, 7 men in the box. So, but they do have to hit on one of these eventually, or people are going to stop respecting it.
Yeah, it's something that, though, they didn't even try last year, right, Dave? I mean, these receivers, even though the numbers aren't jumping off the page yet, the offense surely has more room to roam.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Alshon and Torrey give you that dimension that they just didn't have last year with anybody. And even Nelson Aguilar has proven him to be much better than he was last year. I think Zach Ertz is really stepping up. He seems to be the guy that Carson trusts the most, and is more willing to go to when he needs to. The fact that he leads a team of receptions, speaks to that. I think he leads all NFL tight ends in receptions, as a matter of fact. So, yeah, certainly has a lot more weapons at his disposal than he did last season.
So, in terms of the left guard situation, how do you surmise what's going on there this week?
You would think that the common sense would tell you that Steve Wisniewski should be the starter, and they shouldn't be rotating at all. I mean, he was so much better than Chance Warmack last Sunday. The difference was huge. And, he's an NFL player. He really is, and he's been that way for a few years, starting when he was with Oakland. So that's the logical move. Just plug him in there. But the fact that they didn't do that when they traded Alan Barber tells me that, for some reason they have this determination to make Isaac Seumalo a starter. I don't think you're going to see him much on Sunday, though. It's probably still going to be Wisniewski and Chance Warmack rotating. I thought Chance struggled most of the time when he was in there last week. So common sense tells you that it should be Wisniewski, but I think they're still going to stick with that two-player rotation with him and Chance Warmack.
Obviously the injury situation for this team is I don't know how they got through it. I mean, what does it say that they were able to get through a game without some of the secondary, Fletcher Cox, Jordan Hicks, and then losing Sproles? I mean, the depth on this team, what does that speak to in terms of the depth this team has, that they were able to get through a division game with all the injuries last week?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, this might turn out to be their most impressive win of the season just because of the adversity that they had to go through, like you said. And I mean, not only did you lose all those secondary, but you're also going against Odell Beckham Jr. and Sterling Shepard and Ingram, the tight end. So the fact that they were able to reasonably control those guys with the backups that they had out there, I thought that was the most impressive part of the whole thing. And like you said, the Sproles, losing him was kind of an emotional blow to them, I thought. It looks like they're going to have Cox and Hicks back out there on Sunday, so that should be a big help. It's going to be another time. I think Rodney McLeod will be out there as well. So
that's a big help.
Them a little bit.
Yeah, get Rodney back. Obviously, they were to the fourth string safety last week?
Yeah, Chris Margos, yep.
I saw a stat, Dave, that he played one defensive snap last year and 69 on Sunday.
Yeah. That's quite a turnaround. He played a few the year before that, but yeah, he's a special teams guy. He's a real team player. I mean, he's willing and able to step in wherever you need him. But if you need him at safety, there's something wrong there.
Dave, when I watch this team every week, it seems like they're getting better. You're still a young team, but I feel like that this team, going through the season, if they stay healthy, that they really have a shot at this division. Now, guys like Colin Cowherd and, the NFL power rankings have them higher than I do. But when you watch this team, do you see the same thing I do?
Yeah, I think they're contenders. Injuries aside, of course. If Wentz goes down, then all that goes out the window. But as of now, I don't think there's any dominant team in the NFC East. I mean, Dallas looks great one week, then they look terrible the next. The Giants are just, I think they're pretty much done now at 0-3. The likelihood of them coming back isn't too good. Redskins are another one of those schizophrenic teams too, where you just don't know which team's going to show up. So I'm looking for it to go right down to the wire with the Eagles, Cowboys, and Redskins as far as the division goes, and they have as good a chance as anybody of winning the division and getting into the playoffs.
Yeah, fun division. It's shaping up to be a fun division with the Cowboys. Obviously, I thought Prescott played a really good second half in the game on Monday night. You saw the Redskins looked really good on Sunday. The Eagles obviously squeak out a victory in that one. Right now, Dave, on the defensive side of the ball, Jim Schwartz and the way that he's kind of running this defense, I've been pretty impressed with what he's been able to do, as we kind of talked about with the backup guys. But when they start to get healthy, and I talk about getting Darby back, and when the full complement of guys are out there, how good do you think this defense can be?
Oh, very good. Yeah, they should be a dominant defense if they have all those guys in there. Like you said, they'll have so many things that they can throw at an opposing offense. There's depth up front. Linebackers a little thin, but, it's okay. But, if they can get all those young secondary guys to go with the veterans, that's going to leave Schwartz with a lot of options. He can blitz more often if he chooses to, or he can just sit back and let that front four attack the quarterback and let the secondary do their thing. So, yeah, you're right. If they get all their hands on deck and everybody stays healthy, I think it'll be a dominant defense.
Because it's almost like, now we'll see what happens. They could lose the next two games and we'll have a different narrative. But the injuries allowed some guys to get some playing time. Mostly Douglas is a guy that really stands out in this, but you gave some other guys an opportunity to get out there, just adding to the depth. All of a sudden, the Eagles secondary, you have Darby, and if Jones ends up playing at some point, if not this year, next year, with Douglas and Mills, you got a young, pretty talented secondary all of a sudden.
Yeah, they're all under 25 years old, so that means they're going to be around for a while, I would think. And the more you can get them to grow and develop together, much like Lito Shepherd and Sheldon Brown did back in the early 2000s. If you can establish that kind of rapport with each other, the chemistry in the secondary, that really makes you a tough defense to beat.
We're talking with Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City. His column today says the end of the Eagles game brings everyone together. Dave, you've been on the beat 25 year?s?
Yep.
Have you ever experienced a weekend quite like this in the NFL with everything that was going on?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there was that drama back in 2005, where T.O. was thrown off the team after a game in Denver, and there was all that, drama and stuff in the locker room, the soap opera that unfolded the rest of the year. But as far as league-wide and of the Eagles concerned, I thought this was it was really bizarre, quite frankly. I mean, to see, because it seemed like all the attention was, before the game was on who's going to stand, who's going to kneel, who's going to raise their fist, who's going to sit on the bench. But then, in the last couple seconds of that game, all that stuff went out the window, and everybody was an Eagles fan in that stadium. It just brought the whole team, it brought the whole city together. The way the game ended, and for Jake Elliott to do what he did that just makes him a hero forever, I think.
Yeah, and do you think that it was a distraction to some of the teams in terms of their play on the field?
I don't know. I can't speak because I can't really speak to it because I didn't really see all the other games.
Right.
I don't know which team. I don't know how much they were affected. I got to think that it would probably affected the Steelers just because of the way the Alejandro Villanueva situation unfolded. The rest of the team, Roethlisberger apologizing for staying in the locker room. I think that as long as you presented like a united front, then I think you were okay. It's just when the teams started to split and splinter, some guys kneeling, some guys standing, some guys coming in the locker room, some guys staying out there, then I think you run into problems. I think if you did like the Eagles did and, make the agreement that everyone's going to do everything together, then I think you were probably better off.
Yeah, and obviously the Eagles have a pretty strong voice to lead them in this with Malcolm Jenkins, who's been at the forefront of a lot of this. In that locker room afterwards, I'm sure a lot of you guys, you wrote the story on it at Press of Atlantic City. Do you sense that there's going to be more this weekend and the following weeks, or was it, hey, week 3, this is the week to show our solidarity, and then we move on?
Yeah, I think it's probably a one and done kind of thing. I mean, you're not going to see Jeffrey Lurie down on the sideline again. It was all in response to President Trump's statements and tweets about against the owners, against the league, against the players. If he had never said those things, I don't think it ever would have happened last weekend, to be honest with you. But yeah, now that it did, I think they made their statement. They got their point across like they wanted to, and now I think they just go back to the way things were, and whoever wants to protest can do so. But the rest of it's going to be just focused on beating the opponent that Sunday.
All right, Eagles and Chargers this weekend. Are you going to L.A. there, Dave?
I am, yep, leaving tomorrow. I'm going to catch some Mike Trout, I think, while I'm out there.
Oh, a little double assignment for Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City. Eagles and Chargers at the StubHub Center. We'll see if they might not have enough media space for the Philadelphia contingent out there in that place.
Yeah, that's true. It's the biggest in the league, the traveling contingent for the Eagles. So it'll be interesting to see what the press box looks like. I might be sitting on the 10-yard line. I don't know.
Well, safe travels, Dave, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it as always.